So we have the great honor of Governor Sununu being with us here today, and per Section 21N10, Roman numeral 3, is a consultative process that the governor does with the state board prior to the governor and council voting on the nominee tomorrow. So with that, our governor.
Great. Thank you. No, thank you. Yeah, so obviously this has come up. I'm new to the game. I got the new job recently, but obviously as part of bringing forth a new name for a commissioner for the Department of Education, I've given the opportunity that your meeting here today, we thought it would be a good chance to come in, kind of consult with the board, see if there are any questions, if I could answer anything directly in terms of providing more information about where we want to go. Not to go into a long diatribe, but I'm a big believer that we have a great foundation here in the state in terms of education, both public, private, homeschooling, all these avenues that we've afforded folks in the state to take as part of making sure they can pick their career path. And I just think we have to keep moving forward, keep making sure that we're thinking in kind of a 21st century mindset. I think Frank Edelblut brings both experience to the table and an understanding of how the systems work, what the pushes and pulls are, both the dynamics in terms of the financing as well as where we talk about innovation, but actually some ideas on how to implement on that innovation. Again, both within the public school sector that we have, providing better career paths, not waiting until the 11th and 12th grade for students to help students find that career path. Get aggressive about it. Look at the 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Again, think a little differently about how we do things, stretch ourselves a little bit, and I think he's going to be a great commissioner. But with that, I guess I would open it up if the board has any questions that I can answer. I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Governor, and thanks for coming today. And I know, and I mentioned this to Governor yesterday, that all of us have been receiving a plethora of emails. I actually have to put myself on voicemail and my home phone number in terms of feedback. So I thought I'll just be a facilitator here, and based on the feedback that you've all been getting from your constituents, we'll start with Cindy and then go to John.
Hi there. This is a volunteer board. I'm also on a volunteer school board. We don't have to be, it's wonderful if we do have knowledge of education issues, but it's not a requirement. However, everyone else in our state that is directly employed, whether it's teachers, administrators, superintendents, they all have to be credentialed and they have to be an educational background in that field. And in the past, it's always been that way. As you know, our last commissioner had a PhD in education, this type of thing, and before that was a superintendent with the same type of background. How do you feel that Mr. Edelblut meets the qualified by education and experience requirements of RSA 21N3? It seems like by law that the Commissioner of Education needs to have at least the same educational qualifications and education experience that we require of our superintendents.
By law, that is not required, actually, I don't believe. We're not asking Frank Edelblut to be a school teacher in a classroom. I couldn't say whether Frank Edelblut would be a good school teacher in a classroom. What we are asking our commissioner to do is manage a system of approximately $800 million to a $1 billion system, and provide some innovation in terms of where we're going to go. Make sure we have good communication between the state level and the local communities, better communication within this very department, better communication within the department and the legislature, which obviously has great experience in the legislative process. Frank Edelblut has been in this building many, many times with a variety of the different divisions within this department. I think he brings a great understanding of how the system works and where we can go.
Yep, just before I go to the next question, we've worked so hard on this board with innovations for the whole term of the Dr. Berry's been here and everything. And it's like, I hope that he and you are aware of the incredible innovations that have gone on here, the incredible moving forward, and the tremendous, tremendous respect that New Hampshire education is held throughout the country and all the awards we've been winning. And it's just like amazing how far we've moved so far. Will you require that your commissioners, and of course we're mainly concerned with Mr. Edelblut, to forego political activism while serving, and would you expect that if he is, selected, that he would then serve the four-year term, sorry.
Look, the commissioners are not political pawns. They are there to implement the policy set by the legislature and some of the policy issues. And in this case, that would be brought forth by this board. So that's their role. It is not political. It should not be political by any means.
Can I just follow up on that? Has Mr. Edelblut committed to you to serve out his 4 years?
Yes. Yep, we had that very, very specific conversation.
And then political activism on his part while he serves. Do you have any understanding with him about that? He was asked about that during the hearing, endorsing candidates, being active in the party and so on. What about that?
Well, Frank I think, has made it very clear his first and foremost priority is managing this department. He understands that managing the department is not political. He has to work with both parties. He has to work across the aisle. He has to work with the legislature. He has to work with the governor's office, with the executive council, as he reports to. So I think Frank definitely has an understanding of all the different aspects of the political spectrum that he has to work with in terms of managing here. And he understands that that is his foremost responsibility. Emma? Sir.
Yes, thank you, Governor. I wanted, before I asked a question, to thank you for your budget item that puts more money into the community college system, because I think that's very important. I want to build on Cindy's question about the RSA 21 and 3, the qualified by education and experience language in the statute. As you know, we've received a lot of feedback from the public and from a broad cross-section, not only educators, but school board members, parents, even a homeschool parent writing, saying that they questioned the qualifications in terms of education and experience for Mr. Edelblut. So my question would be, how will he gain the trust and have credibility with the educational professionals in the public school system when he hasn't had any of this actual experience himself?
Well, I had that very discussion with Frank about kind of the initial steps, and Mr. Edelblut was the one to bring forward the idea. He said, the first thing I'm going to do is a brown bag tour across the state, right into public schools, sit down with folks one-on-one. That's the way you do it in New Hampshire. You got to be able to sit down with them one-on-one, whether they're administrators, teachers, parents, students, whatever it might be, and kind of put it all on the table. And I think as part of that process, and I don't think it'll take too much time for people to quickly realize the depth of his knowledge base, his understanding of the system, and his openness to new ideas. So with any process, and especially in New Hampshire, you do it one-on-one, and I'm very encouraged by the fact that it's kind of his idea that he's brought forth and really making sure that he's, again, managing within this building. We're really spending a lot of his additional time outside of this building, in those communities and in those schools.
That's kind of standard practice, I think, for the department.
And look, let me say, you could come in here with 5 different PhDs in education, and you still have to be able to walk out this door and make that case. Nobody should just be relying on a resume or a few letters after their name to define their qualifications. You have to prove it, right? Any of us do that take public roles like this.
How would you just said his experience with public education, share that. He's never been on a board, his children, he's never attended a parent meeting in schools. How does he have this wealth of experience with public education that he's going to bring to the rest of the state? It seems like there's a disconnect.
Look, Frank's work in the legislature, understanding the process that the public education system is managed by, has to go through, how the dollars are managed, the innovations, what we do with Common Core. You can sit Frank up here, he can answer, and look, he sat through 7 hours of testimony and did an unbelievable job. His depth of knowledge, especially with the public education system, is phenomenal. But then he also brings the other aspect to it, the idea that we have to be more forward-thinking, the idea that there are other alternatives out there, the idea that families come first and parents have to be the ones that can decide the best pathway for their student. Bill?
On the school choice question, Mr. Edelblut testified that parents in New Hampshire are voting with their feet. and I think he expanded on that to explain that he meant charters, voucher-supported, and homeschools, private schools. But actually, those numbers are pretty small. How would Mr. Edelblut balance yours and his commitment to choice with a commitment to about 180,000 kids that are in district schools and need the commissioner's leadership?
Yeah. I think you're misunderstanding what we mean when we say choice. Choice is not public schools versus everybody else. Choice is not about us versus them. Choice is really about making sure that each student has a career path. And again, I can only speak for myself. You'd have to ask Frank more directly. I don't want to speak for Frank Edelblut. I'm not here to do that. But choice is really about making sure that the parents and students are being able to devise their path forward. And even those 180,000 that are, and plus, I think it's even more than that, within the public schools, we need to make sure that they have better choices, whether it's a career school path. Maybe it's testing out disciplines that they already have proficiency in, so they can expand and focus more on some of their higher skill sets, right? There's choice that we need to expand on even within our own public schools. So this idea that choice is about us versus them and them versus us and private versus public and homeschool versus private, that's just a small piece of the equation. We need to think broader. We need to think bigger, right? We need to get out of this mindset of running schools like we have for the past 30 years. We've made structurally some great steps in terms of innovation. Now it's time to implement on that innovation and really make sure that we're remembering that the control of our schools, the control of our children's destinies within education really lies at that local level and with the parents.
Can I just respond that that is
Sure.
very exciting? I mean, it's been the heart of the department's policy and the board's policy over this past number of years. And the prospect of career path, pushing it into lower grades is just totally exciting, I would say. This then I won't, I had a follow-up question that had to do with reaching rural areas with choice and personalization to the extent that charters and vouchers were the strategy, but that's less of an issue with that in the context of where we're trying to reach every child in every district school with a deeper array of choices, which may include different schools or homeschooling. So I doubly appreciate that. What should be done at this point about math and English standards that are virtually fully adopted in the field? Would a review of the standards be good?
Well, I think a review of anything is always good. I mean, I think, again, I'm not here to speak for Frank. If you're asking me directly, standards are a good thing. You have to have standards. You have to make sure that you're creating metrics to measure yourself by, and rubrics that create pathways to achieve those goals, to be sure. If you're asking about the standards, we need to have standards, of course.
Yes, so I'm just responding to both yours and Mr. Edelblut's opposition to the Common Core standards, and they are indeed.
I think, if I may,
Go ahead.
it's not an opposition to the Common Core. It's not the standards that I think, and again, I can only speak for myself.
Yeah.
It's not the standards that I have an issue with, and I think Frank would agree. It's not standards that we're trying to get. It's how we assess those standards. Are we doing assessments or are we making judgments? And again, in my experience, and I'm only speaking as myself, and frankly as a dad who's been in public schools, please remember I'm the first governor in 25 years to actually have come through the public schools of New Hampshire. I understand the benefit and how good they can be and what they have to offer, by all means. But when we're talking about the assessments, that's where I get a bit frustrated as a parent, because they've become more of judgment tools, and the pressures we're putting on some of those local communities, just speaking for myself here, is become so great that we are limiting the ability for teachers, frankly, to do what they do best. We are limiting the ability to teachers to have flexibility and time in their classrooms, to challenge kids who could be challenged more, to give kids additional help who need some additional help, because there's so much time and pressure put on the way we're looking at the assessments That's one of my frustrations. Do we need standards? Absolutely. Do we need assessments? Absolutely. But it's what assessments we're using, what tools we're using, how we're using them, and what we're doing with the results of those tools that I think, I feel can be indirectly, not intentionally, but indirectly prohibitive within some of the potential we have within the classrooms.
So our criteria should be that the assessments are supportive and constructive and give feedback to the students and parents and teachers.
Sure. Look, if I may, you know, when we started publishing in the newspapers the results of all the assessments, what a horrible idea that was. I don't know whose idea that was, but that was a horrible idea. Because you know what you just said? If you don't do a good job as an administrator or a teacher, we're going to let everybody know about it. So, of course, human nature, the teacher said, oh my gosh, I don't want to be on the bottom of that list again, right? So they put all the time and effort and the practice, not practice curriculum, practicing for the test. It simply now becomes, I think it's become more of an assessment, who's practiced more than anything. So and again, just speaking for myself here, but I can tell you I've talked to Frank about standards. I think we agree standards have to be in place. Assessments have to be in place. But it's how we use it and how we're creating those assessments, what we're trying to get out of it, I think is where I think we can just do a little bit better. But again, I have to be honest, if you going any further than that, you'd have to bring Frank in on it directly.
Yes, well, I mean, this is a consultation on his appointment.
Right.
So,
But again,
yeah.
you know, I think this is, if I can, this is a good example of, I think this idea that, you know, public education is going to be blown up and drastically changed. No, I think Frank would be the first one to say, no, we have a great foundation here, a great foundation. It's just taking that foundation and moving on to the next level, moving on to implement some better pathways to deal with some of the issues we're dealing, not just within our schools, but within our workforce. And again, providing and enforcing that kind of live for your die spirit, that local control that a lot of us really do share.
I think Gary has a follow-up on the session, but Emma, did you have any follow-up?
I just, going back to the voucher point, and I understand and appreciate that you're talking about choice within our regular public school curriculum, which I think is something we've already been emphasizing. But if my understanding is correct, I think Mr. Edelblut also is interested in vouchers to non-public schools. And in that case, how would we answer the New Hampshire's constitutional prohibition against using public money for religious schools?
Well, if we're looking at a potential voucher system, I can tell you I'm very open to that. We'd have to look at how it really looks and how it would work. And to your point, you have to make sure it works within the confines and appropriate constraints of the Constitution and make sure it works legislatively, make sure you have appropriate, again, metrics and feedback response to make sure if we're going to go with the new system, how is the system working, how do we assess it? I think I hate to overuse the term, but the devil's kind of in the details. Other states have implemented it very successfully. Maybe it's a pathway for us, maybe it isn't, but it's something that, you know, if he's looking to explore, I'm very open to that. I think
New Hampshire has a very specific language about public money in sectarian schools, so not every state has that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gary?
So in this conversation on assessment, if substantial numbers of parents in any school refuse to let their children take the annual statewide assessment, the test wouldn't reflect the performance of that school, obviously. So is support for bills encouraging refusal of assessments that give parents feedback on the schools consistent with constitutional obligation to provide an adequate education?
I apologize. Can you repeat the question?
So the question is, so is support for bills encouraging refusal of assessments that give parents feedback on their schools consistent with the constitutional obligation to provide an adequate education?
Are you asking if we should be supporting such bills? I apologize. I don't understand the question.
Can I expand on
Yeah,
that?
please.
Our constitutional obligation to provide at least an adequate education for every child depends on this statewide annual assessment. And there are bills in the legislature encouraging opting out of that, or refusing to take it. And if that happened at any substantial volume in any one school, there'd be no way to know whether
Right,
that.
it'd be a false assessment.
So,
Sure.
in that context, what is your posture, and really the question is also Mr. Edelblut, toward those bills?
Well, I think the first thing we have to say is if there's that many people opting out of the assessment, well then maybe there's something wrong with the assessment, right? Let's have a little self-reflection about why is that, right? I'm an engineer, I always want to kind of go to the root of the problem. Okay, well why is that? Why are folks opting out? So let's ask ourselves that question and see if we can address that, of course. If you're asking me if I support bills in the legislature that allow parents to opt their children out of an exam, absolutely. That's choice, that's local control. Are there repercussions to that? Of course. We need to make sure we're addressing those repercussions. I think that's, you can't just do it necessarily in a vacuum and assume there aren't potential negative repercussions there. But again, I go back to why is this happening? Why are so many folks then opting their child out if that were to be the case? But I think your assessment's right. If a large proportion are opting out, it's not really assessment anymore.
Right.
You know, it's not going to get accurate results.
It doesn't take that large a proportion, right?
Yeah,
Before
sure.
the numbers are not.
Especially in our small school districts. You know, again, speaking as a parent, my son was in a classroom of 20 kids. You get at a certain point, it doesn't take many for the statistical anomalies to be driving the results, really.
Great.
You know, I guess the question would be, one quick one would be, how do we pronounce it? Edelblut? You not pronounce the
I
T,
believe
right?
it's Edelblut, but
Edelblut.
you'll have to ask.
Well, I keep hearing the T is silent, so I'm trying to figure out what to do with that. Sorry. He's not going to, he doesn't have investments in any interest financially in businesses that relate to education at this current time?
Not that I know.
Or
but you
aware
have
of,
to
or
ask.
if he did, he would separate those out as part of becoming commissioner, I would assume then?
I would assume so, but I'm not aware of any of that.
Okay. And then just a quick, I've been on the school board, SAU 36, White Mountain Regional, since around, I forget exactly, 2003, 2004, somewhere right in there. Funding is always an issue, and I know other school districts in the North Country struggle regularly. We're always looking at our budgets and trimming and fine-tuning. Some of the ideas as far as bringing education forward, I know we have taken on. And I was thinking back a few minutes ago to Fred Vermonti back in the early 2000s coming north to talk about whole world learning. And we're doing a thing where we have individual education plans. We're moving forward in our high school to let kids go out in the workplace, have a supervisor check them in the workplace, but we're also at the same time, past 5 years, 11% reduced federal and state aid. This year alone, I think we're about 7% reduced funding. I'm curious how we can, particularly in the North Country, look for support from the new commissioner to try and help us with resources and give the best opportunities for our kids up north.
Well, again, I cannot speak for Frank directly.
I
Again, if you want a good numbers person, there's no one better in terms of finding efficiencies in the system. That Frank is absolutely superb. Even in our brief conversations, he's brought some very rough ideas to light, just in terms of providing more flexibility, right? A lot of that, as a lot of folks know, we get money out of Washington, D.C., right, from the Department of Education. Is there more flexibility we can have with those dollars? Possibly. That could actually free up dollars to be better, I'll use the term, better spent in a lot of those local communities that are having struggles. You know, this gets to a bigger issue of property taxes on the local side, because we all know that our property taxes are really driving the bulk of the spend within those communities and within the school districts themselves. So what are we doing on our level at the state side to help folks with a bigger property tax issue? So again, maybe there's a possibility for more flexibility of dollars going in there. But every community is different. I mean, what happens in Manchester is a lot different than Coburg. What happens in Portsmouth is a lot different than Hinsdale. So again, I think the role that I believe Frank and the philosophy that Frank is looking to bring is making sure that we retain local control. We make sure the local and individual districts themselves have the tools and resources they need, and when possible, give them the flexibility to manage those dollars appropriately. Get the dollars out for real programming, as opposed to being tied up in administrative or overhead. So with more flexibility comes the option to manage those dollars a lot easier and provide more opportunity all the way into the classroom level.
Thank you. Ellen, we haven't heard from you.
Thank you for being here, Governor. In listening to Mr. Edelblut talk about his positions, it's my understanding that his position would be that teachers should be free to teach what they want to in their classrooms. I'm encouraged to hear you talk about standards. We have adopted the next generation science standards, which many of our local communities had already been using before we brought them. If, for example, a teacher in a community, a science teacher, thought it was important and appropriate to teach a curriculum that included anti-gay, creationism, climate change denial, is it your position that that would be appropriately supported by the commissioner in an idea that teachers need to be free to teach what they want?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the freedom that we're trying, the flexibility we're trying to give teachers, it isn't to say, you shut the door and good luck, go off on your own and do whatever you want. That is not the approach here, nor should it be the approach. You need standards, you need oversight, you need balance, of course, and I think Frank understands that and brings that to the table. So no, I mean, you don't just let people say absolutely whatever they want in a classroom and do whatever they want in a classroom, just because they have that power within those four walls at that moment. There are standards, and I'm not talking about the standards that we want to meet academically, but they're just appropriate standards of protocol in terms of how schools should be operating, specifically when we're talking about the public school system.
Any other questions, Ellen?
I did. Let me switch heads for a moment, if I could. Governor, will you instruct the next commissioner to follow the ESSA accountability requirements, including submitting a plan in a timely manner for that?
I gotta be honest, I'd have to review that. I've heard of the requirements, I have not gone through them in great detail, but yeah, it's something that we could definitely review.
Gary, you're a member of the Business and Education Coalition, which supports all competency-based education and so forth, so I think you may have a question along that.
Right. The educators in this room and this committee is obviously deeply engaged in transforming public education for the 21st century, most notably through personalized competency education, the PACE initiative. Is that a vision that you and Mr. Edelblut share?
I believe so. I've talked to him about PACE. I mean, I think PACE has been very successful in the few districts and schools that has been implemented in. Again, that's a program that is providing flexibility, that is providing options within, a good example, I don't want to say it's a school choice, but within our public school districts, we're expanding, we're being a little more flexible in how we look at those assessments, essentially. That's really what it is. It's part of the assessment tools that we use. So it's something that I'm very encouraged by, and I believe Frank is.
Well, we want to be respectful of the governor's time, so Bill, I'm going to give you the last
Can I ask
question.
one question
Oh,
before we go on? And this really is a question for you. I love what you said about school choice. I know that we, as far within the public system, where, each school district, like Greg said, is working on these things. The problem is, it all costs money. You need more counselors, you need more specialists that work with all these kids as they're going in all these different directions. We're trying desperately to do this. And the bottom line is with the account that takes the money where businesses can put it, that's money that goes away from the public system where we need more money. So I would ask you, how will you find, are you planning to make sure that the money within the public system to do all this wonderful choice stays intact? In other words, it would have to be an increase from the legislature as money is big, it would be pulled out for the vouchers and the privates and this kind of stuff. How would you get an increase in the allocation so that we can do all these wonderful things?
Well, again, I'm a firm believer that when you have a system that is looking for more money, one of the best things to do is to provide more flexibility within that system so we can manage to meet the goals that we've set out for ourselves, not necessarily the goals that Washington DC has set out for us. We have a lot of mandates in this state that might not necessarily be applicable and appropriate and prioritized in some of the local districts that we have around the state. And again, this really goes to what happens in Manchester is different than what happens in other small towns or Nashville or whatever it might be. So providing more financial flexibility to those towns by, I don't want to overuse the term block grants, but anywhere we can break down some of the regulations that might not be applicable to those local communities and provide them more flexibility with their budgeting, well, that's a good thing. And I don't think you're going to find almost anyone else in this state that brings that kind of experience than Frank Edelblut. This is a gentleman who understands the numbers, understands how to find efficiencies, has had great success in his career, understands our public education system in terms of fundamentally how it works now, the legislative process, the constitutional process. He brings all of this together to make sure that our local communities have the freedom to create the efficiencies they need to get the most out of their program.
Thank you. Bill, will give you the last question.
So the only
Governor's time.
thing I would add is we've got a lot of communication from parents of students with special needs and concerned about the nominee's commitment and ability to support special needs students. So our question would be your confidence and your own commitment to that happening.
I have the utmost confidence. I think Commissioner Frank Edelblut, as Commissioner, will understand that that is always going to be a top priority, not just within what happens in Concord, but within those local districts. I don't know what those concerns are based on, or any comments that he's made to warrant those concerns. But in my conversations with him, I think he understands not just special education, but when you look at OT, PT, speech therapy, whatever it might be, all those kind of work into the confines of the special education program, making sure that not just at the teacher level, but really at the administrative level, they have all the support and tools and resources they need. Again, it goes a little bit back to making sure they have flexibility. One of the limitations in special education always comes down to funding. As we know, the federal government made a promise 35 years ago in this country to fund special education, and they never came through on it. So that obligation is at our local communities. It's important, and I think Frank would also emphasize those sentiments.
Thank you, Governor. So some of you may be in the audience, so I have spoken to so many constituents and emails. This is just a representative sample. Also postcards, regular mail, voicemails, phone calls. So I haven't read all those, so I thought with your permission, what we'll do is we'll assemble a letter for you so you can see all of the feedback.
My guess is most of it comes to our office as well. But yeah, please, whatever information you can provide,
and I think
would be great.
And I think what we'll do to make it maybe a little easier, we'll put kind of like an executive summary of the themes. I just want to let everybody know that I did get all that. I forwarded night and day to all of my colleagues. I read everything. I want those of you that are here, if you haven't read your specific comment today, it will be passed on to the governor. That was my commitment. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good luck tomorrow with the process.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Okay. Thank you. Good to see you guys. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Good
Politician, thank you.
to see you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the time.
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you. All right. Be good. Thank you.